We're going.
Yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Activate and Thrive and to our Thriving Thursday chat, where we have a chat with different, beautiful health and wellness and thriving-minded people about many different aspects of health and just thriving in this world in various different ways. We run these chats periodically here on our Facebook page, Activate and Thrive, and then we also share them on YouTube afterwards. So whether you're watching this live on Facebook, later on Facebook, or on our YouTube channel, thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you. My name's Dawn.
And I'm Mia, and our guest today is Robin Marquez. And Robin's going to be talking with us about how to maintain our breast health. She's a licensed physical therapist with 30 plus years in practice. Her life's work is really devoted to dramatically shifting the women's health movement and really making a difference there and seeing that every woman has access to the full spectrum of healing and support and services that they deserve for both preventative and palliative care. So her personal experience as a breast cancer survivor with recurring breast cancer really had everything to do with her journey to want to help other women navigate their journey back to wellness. And traditional therapies left her with many limitations relating to just range of motion and pain and other things that she will speak about with us. But her personal drive really led her to seek out and explore alternative treatments that were not really offered and are not offered by the traditional medicine world. So she's just really motivated to make a difference in the lives of other women and, maintaining optimal wellness. So Robin, welcome today. We're so happy to have you with us.
Great. Thanks, Mia. Thanks, Dawn. It's my pleasure to be here and happy to share a little bit of information about myself and what I do, just to start us off a little bit. Yes, I am a breast cancer survivor, and I like to say thriver. But a lot of what I've learned and what I do when I work with women is to help them navigate their journey a little bit more easily than I did. Initially, I was diagnosed with cancer after having been pretty good about getting annual mammograms. For 7 years prior to myself finding a lump on my right breast in the shower. And when I brought it to my doctor's attention, she said, well, okay, let's repeat your mammogram, even though I just show that I had anything. So we were going back, we repeated it, we still didn't see anything. And so we were concerned because it wasn't showing up, but clearly there was a lump there. So my reports that I'd gotten from mammography was that they were normal and that I just had some minor calcifications. So they went in and they did biopsies, and lo and behold, they found that I did have multiple tumors. And so had to undergo the traditional chemotherapy, surgeries. I had bilateral mastectomies and then reconstruction. So all in all was pretty good in terms of my recovery. I needed a little bit of extra help. Even though I was a physical therapist, I needed more work than what I was getting with the traditional physical therapist. So I sought out somebody that really specialized in scars and wound management and could help me a little bit more. And then from there, I learned about that. I opened a private practice, started treating women, doing things a little bit differently, but also incorporating a lot more holistic techniques into what I do. Energy healing, Reiki, a lot more scar tissue work, and really doing hands-on with that. And women seem to be responding well, and I all was, thriving, and I was recuperating myself. And then a few years ago, I was taking a trip with one of my clients down to Mexico, and decided to get some workup done myself, and only to find out that I had gotten a reoccurrence. And so I decided I was not going to do the traditional mode of chemotherapy and radiation. I wasn't even going to have biopsies at this point because the cancer was just in my axillary nodes under my armpits and in my throat. And so we treated conservatively with thermal energy techniques and multiple other things. But the point is, what we came to the conclusion was that some of what was happening was coming from directly from my breast implants, which I had put in earlier when I was diagnosed with cancer and after I had the initial surgeries. And it was the breast implants that were actually causing me to get sick again and to early start the development of cancer again as a reoccurrence. And so it was that diagnosis of the breast cancer that triggered me to look into what was going on with my breast implants, which had been slowly releasing chemicals from just the outer shells, because when we actually removed them, we found out that they were not ruptured, they were actually intact, but over the period of time, slowly at my normal body temperature of 98.6, 98.8, they were slowly, cooking and releasing these chemicals. And I don't know if many of your viewers know, but even just the shell of an implant that they put in the body has 47 different chemicals within that silicone shell that contains either silicone or water inside of it. And so that can slowly be released. Even if your breast implants don't rupture, you can still take in a lot of those chemicals. And that's what can lead us to have many different diseases, as not only just in the advanced stages as the cancer, but often a lot of autoimmune diseases can be triggered by the breast implants as well. Not everybody's allergic to the implant material, but many people can develop an allergic reaction. And obviously it's something that has to be addressed. So I had my implants removed, and now I'm undergoing part of my healing is involving a detox program, a very strict detox program.
I just ask you, are there any implants that don't slowly cook, quote unquote?
No, because even the saline ones that have saline on the inside, Dawn, have the silicone outer shell, and it's the outer shell that has the chemicals in it that will slowly be released. So even if it just has saline on the inside, you are still at risk. Yeah.
Well, I would love for you to share a little bit more with our audience about some of the other things that you do to maintain that breast health. But I just find it very interesting that the mammography did not pick up on that, and that you detected your own cancer the second time around.
Right. And I had just had it 2 months prior to that, did not show it. Clearly the lump was there because it was a decent size that I could actually feel it. The physician could feel it. So the reason is that at the time I was not diagnosed as having dense breasts. And now for women, I think it's very important that all women know whether or not they do have the term dense breasts, which means that the tissue within the breast has got a very high concentration of collagen and fibrous tissue, which is extremely dense. And if that's the case, there is not good visibility of the mammogram to actually differentiate between a cancerous tumor or clump of cells. And so this is why it's so important that women who do have dense breasts, and we're now required by law, Massachusetts is one of the states that does give out reports when you get your first mammogram, whether or not your breasts are dense. And if they are, there are categories of density, and there's 4 different categories. If you happen to be in the later stages of the density or the higher grade densities, you're even at greater risk of not being able to get any information from mammograms that would be helpful in an early preventative mode. Maybe in the extreme later modes, you may possibly see something, but many times it will not be visible at all.
Of course, that may be too late.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, based on what you just shared about your timeline, I'm understanding that you actually moved into the holistic side before you decided to, before you found out about the second wave of breast cancer. And at that point, you did go holistic. But when you first went holistic, what moved you there? Because I understand that the previous treatment was actually pretty successful, if I understand.
What moved me there was, Dawn, I started developing a lot more autoimmune problems. I had problems with extreme dry eye. I got scarring on my corneas. And so this is what, and I became allergic to my own teardrops. So this is what, I said, what is going on? And we didn't tie in all of the autoimmune issues that were coming up to the breast implants. That took a couple of years to get all of that to tie in together, because nobody was putting the pieces together for me. But what I had been working on myself, which helped me, was a lot of the energy work that I do, Reiki, and the scar management work and things like that were very beneficial. As well as I was cleaning up my diet, I was eating more healthy. But I just actually want to stress the importance of just good dental care as well. because I think I had also at that point had before my reoccurrence had just had a lot of heavy metals in my mouth removed, and they were not removed correctly. So some of that got re-entered back into my system as well. So it's so important that people know that there's a huge connection between the dental piece in your mouth and actually draining down the meridians to the breasts. That oftentimes if you have root canals, you should definitely have them checked, ideally by a biological dentist who will make sure that your root canals are not infected, because you can have silent infections, and this could directly drain to the breasts and subsequently lead to breast cancer, which is very concerning. So we always start by looking at my clients. I look at their mouth and I ask them, you know, have you had a lot of root canals? Do you have a lot of mercury fillings? Because that in itself can give off toxins that we know can affect the body, in particular the breasts, because they're in close proximity to the direct next draining site, which would be the breast from the mouth.
Wow. I just wanted to follow up on that, but a lot of people who would maybe come out of it having autoimmune issues and all that would not still necessarily say, let me go holistic. Many people will continue to go on the allopathic side. So there was something where was it recommended to you, or did you just know within yourself that you needed to move that direction?
Yeah, you know, I just wasn't getting the right answers. I was getting, well, here, take a pain pill. Here, you know, let's look at that. Let's do more surgery. Let's release some scar, you know, work, because they were just all attributing it to just options that I really didn't want to go down. I didn't want to go down the pharmaceutical route, and I was still having a lot of pain, and there was just something that was not feeling right in my body. I didn't feel like I was on, you know, more of a healing trajectory at that point.
Great. Good. Thank you.
You know, you mentioned
and I do want to stress how important it is about the filtration of the water that people drink every day. Because if you don't realize it, if you're drinking tap water, I cannot stress enough the contaminants in tap water and how we need to, we do stress to everybody how hydrated we need to be every day. And I think that's important, but it's also important that you're looking at the filtration of your water. And particularly what you're drinking during the day, because tap water we know is no longer providing us with not only the nutrients and the mineral, but it's also providing us with a lot of other toxins that we just don't need. So a good reverse osmotic water system or any kind of filtration system would be very beneficial. And I'm including the shower too, because we don't want to be subjecting our skin, which absorbs all of these toxins, with a shower if we're taking it once or twice a day. Just putting a simple filter on your shower head makes a huge difference on getting the chlorine and the bromine and the fluoride out of your water, which is huge, because your big high concentrations of that in your body a lot of it come from your showering during the day.
Well, we're fortunate that we're good in the department you're talking about. We have 2 water softeners and a neutralizer, and then our drinking water goes through a reverse osmosis. So
right. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it's hugely important, as well as not drinking your water out of plastic containers where you're going to be getting, you know, the contaminants of that, and your cookware and all of things like that. I mean, I did a whole overhaul on my house in terms of getting that stuff out. But I mean, that was initially something that I had not looked at when I had my first bout of cancer, what I was using for cookware, you know, and also just, you know, eliminating a lot of microwave using and things like that was very helpful in doing that.
And even, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this kind of goes along with something you were going to ask, right? About things people could be doing. She's already talking about that.
Well, yeah, she just naturally is. Yeah. But, you know, you did mention eating certain foods. Are there foods that we should avoid altogether?
Well, obviously, in terms of cancer, yes. You know, sugar feeds cancer. So, you know, we want to stay away from sugar. Dairy is another very detrimental agent and for the development of cancer, but also for anybody that happens to have lymphedema or swelling, you know, because what happens is it backs up the lymph and it makes the lymph system not work as effectively. And for those of you who don't know what the lymph system is, this is what actually helps filter our whole body. It helps to remove the toxins and it helps to get things down to the liver in order for the liver to do its job. And so what happens is if you're eating dairy, the dairy can thicken the lymph fluid and it just doesn't circulate as well. through the body. So if you're not circulating your lymphatic system, you are not bringing the toxins down to your liver, which brings me to the next point. It's really important that we support our liver. And how do we do that? I cannot stress how important it is to be able to have just good daily bowel movements, because if you're not eliminating these toxins from your body, they will accumulate. And where are they going to go? They're going to go to the areas that you have stores of fat. And that happens to be the breasts. And so many of the toxins relocate back to the breast because women or men are just not having bowel movements frequently enough. And you should be having 1 to 2 a day as a minimum. Every time you eat a meal, ideally you should be going to the bathroom afterwards to help to excrete some of those toxins that we take in, particularly the foods that are very high in the bad types of estrogens in our body that we don't really want, that can lead to cancer.
You said the foods that are very high in estrogen and the foods.
For example, red meats tend to have a lot of estrogens in them, and they're not helpful. They're not the same type of estrogens that our body naturally makes. So our body doesn't know how to break these down. And what happens is a lot of the meat processing that you see that goes on with the cattle industry and the poultry, the animals are giving very high dosages of antibiotics as well as hormones. So they will accelerate in their growth much quicker. They'll put on more weight and they'll get a bigger, leaner, hopefully crop. But what happens is we're ingesting the same amount of antibiotics and hormones that the cattle gets or the chicken, and that accumulates over a period of time within our bodies. And so that's what actually leads to the development of some of the estrogen-based cancers. Yeah, in men and in women. And prostate cancer is also an estrogen-driven cancer. So it's not just the breast cancer for men and women, but it's also the prostate comes from a lot of diets that are very high in meat and poultry.
So you also, I'm kind of pivoting a little bit, but you had mentioned the whole point of the mammogram situation and that not detecting your cancer. So
Right.
What do you do to detect cancer if you don't get a mammogram? Can you speak to that?
Question. Absolutely. So
Because
what do
everybody
women
assumes
do?
it's
And what do men do? Anybody that has dense breasts have been told. And so, it takes one mammogram now in Massachusetts, and the radiologist is required to give the report back to the physician, and that should state that the person has dense breasts and classify it. So once you know that, basically, with the density of the breasts, you can look for alternative screening options. And what else can you do? Well, and thermography is what I learned about when I happened to be down in Mexico with one of my clients. But we do have it available in the United States here. There's a form of digital thermography, which uses infrared beams via cameras. But then there's also a different type called European thermography. And in European thermography, we use an infrared beam coming from a laser pointer. And we look at 100 different acupressure meridian points on the body. And we're comparing the temperature of the skin from one side of the body to the other. When we subject the body to changes in temperature, for example, we'll have them come into a room, we'll acclimate them for about 10 minutes, and then we'll turn the air conditioning on and you'll see a decrease. And so the body has to accommodate to that. Well, the right side of the body should accommodate the same way as the left side does. And so we will check the points on the right side of the body, then we'll check the same points on the left side of the body, and then we'll run the computerized statistical analysis of those 2 points. And it will let us know if there are hot spots on the right side of the body or the left side of the body, which is very helpful in terms of telling us if there's inflammation there. It will not give us a diagnosis of cancer. I want to be very clear on that, but it will tell us about early signs of inflammation and high amounts of new blood vessel growth, which are 2 of the preliminary things that we do know happens right before you get groups of cancer cells forming a tumor. So if we can find that out, we can then direct the person back to, okay, there's a hot spot here, there's some increased blood flow. Now we need to follow this area up with maybe an ultrasound. And that's when we can actually see if there's any anatomical structures there, like a lump or something like that. So for women who do have dense breasts, thermography in combination with ultrasound is 97% effective in finding breast cancer if it's actually there. But if it's not there, it will tell you about the inflammation going on there in order to prevent the development of cancer, which is ideally what we want to do, is really do more of a prevention model and not wait until somebody has cancer.
Would you-
Also, sorry, go ahead.
Would you recommend that all women do a thermogram, would it be, as opposed to a mammogram? Is that what everybody should really do?
I think, I would recommend that all young women, starting off between 18 and 25, maybe get a thermography for a baseline, and then they can see how well their diet is either working for them or not working for them in many cases. And they can see, where the areas are that they need to concentrate. But for women who have a history of breast cancer, or for women who, they have mothers that have breast cancers or immediate relatives, I would say that they might need to get one preliminary mammogram to just determine if they have dense breasts or not, and get a classification as to what density they have. But then subsequently, I would follow that up with thermography for their optimal screening technique and ultrasound.
How many?
But I think that if you have if you're at high risk, or if you have a history of cancer, breast cancer in your family, I would get the mammogram just to determine if you do have dense breasts or not.
And that's the only thing that will determine whether you have dense breast is a mammogram.
Yeah, you can actually physically feel the breast, and you can very often it's highly correlated with the physical exam that you can feel some density. But just to get confirmation on it, it actually is the mammogram that gives us the ultimate confirmation that they're dense breasts there. But I also want to mention too, women who weigh over 250 pounds, we do not get accurate readings on mammograms very clearly. It's very difficult to see, even though they have a higher amount of fatty tissue in the breast, which is more easily visible if there is a tumor there. Because of size, obesity, usually 250, 300 pounds. If you weigh more than that, you are not getting an accurate mammogram. And so many times things can be missed. And that's why thermography would be a better option for people who are weighing a little bit more than that, 250 or so.
And people that are smaller, in stature, or have small breasts, that doesn't matter. They could still have dense breasts. Yes.
They could still have dense breasts. Many cases, younger women, we know that density of the breast does decrease as we age because our estrogen levels go down. And so, and many times, young girls will tend to have much higher density. And as you breastfeed, if you've had children, breastfeeding will also help to reduce some of the density in the breasts, but they will naturally reduce with age, particularly when they go into the menopausal years. Women will get a little bit less density in the breast, but it is important to determine that, it's particularly for baselines for people starting off. And if you want to stay on top of your breast health and do that, I would highly recommend going that route. The other things you can do on a day-to-day basis are, we have women using essential oils. It's so important to use essential oils. They can help with inflammation. They can help reduce some of the toxic load. And then just massage will help in itself to help break up some density. So you do the combination of daily massage with the essential oils. It can be very significant. It can also help with just pain in the breast. If you're having just monthly pain, if the woman is not menopausal and she's still cycling and she's having some painful breasts, it can be very helpful for that as well. We find that. And dry skin brushing is something else that people can consider doing to support their lymphatic system, because it really can get clogged, and it can get much, particularly if you're eating a lot of dairy, if you're drinking alcohol. These are the things that we can do every day in the shower. Use a simple brush, with a long handle on it, and just start doing some daily dry skin brushing. There's lots of videos on YouTube on there that can show you how to do that. It's so important that you know where the lymph nodes are and you direct the lymph to that.
Wow.
I do have the brushes and I do it, but I don't think I maybe am educated about how I do it.
And you can do it for your face. It's very helpful if you've got sinus issues. If you've got inner ear infections, you tend to get that a lot. Oftentimes, draining the head of the lymph will help to get rid of some of the toxins, as well as the viruses and the bacteria that you take in that you get when you get sick. And so by doing that, it is very helpful to clear the head and neck as well. Yeah.
as we it's always too quick that we start getting to the point where we have to wrap up because we like to respect people's time. But I do want to ask, a number of times you've referenced inflammation, and we work, and I know you work also with a technology, a product that really gets to the core of why inflammation happens, which is something called oxidative stress that we all have. And this product that we take and we work with and we share with people has a massive impact on reducing oxidative stress. Can you speak to what that's going to do for people? You've talked about various preventive things people can be doing.
Absolutely, Don. I highly recommended that. Yes. I started myself, on the product, but I also, for that very reason, because many cancer patients are in that same situation. It's inflammation that leads to the cancer, and it's the high oxidative stress levels that we know can left for long periods of time will lead to the early development of cancer. And so, absolutely, any cancer patients that are trying to, strengthen their nutritional load, that's great. But if you're not reducing the oxidative stress and the inflammation at the same time, you can be eating very healthy. But if you're not reducing your oxidative stress, you're still going to go down that road. So I think it's so important. And that's why I believe in, the product as well. And I'm looking forward to, really, sharing that with my clients.
Well, that's terrific.
And, Robin is an incredible therapist, shall we say, and she does have a practice. If you're local, she's in Chestnut Hill in Massachusetts, and we can put her website in the notes and the comments also as well, in case you want to reach out to her.
Absolutely,
she's very good.
as we can tell.
Yeah. I'm in Wellesley now.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I always
Wellesley, Massachusetts. So. Yeah. Well, Robin, thank you so very much for joining us today. It's been very informative. There's so much more we could learn. These should be an hour and a half, but they're about a half hour. So the technology and product that we've been talking about, if you'd like to know more about it, it is very unique and significant and has a lot of science backing it. Please feel free to drop a question in the chat, and we can reach out to you and share more. And as Mia said, we'd be happy if you'd like to learn more from Robin. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer questions. Please feel free to drop a comment and ask to be connected with her. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robin Marquez, and our audience, to learn about healthy breasts. It's such a critically important area. So we run these chats periodically. Please look for notifications about them on Facebook, not every Thursday, but now and then on Thursdays at noon, East Coast US time. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.